Left Wing Kingz. Listen, think, act, repeat.
Mental health is a critical part of overall health, but it's been overlooked, especially in the Black community, right? And there are several mental health challenges that are facing Black people each and every day. Now, Dewan, I know this topic is critically important to you, so please share with us why you wanted to discuss it and tell us a little bit about.
Well, I was diagnosed with depression back in 2005, and I never knew exactly what was going on with me, until I got diagnosed. And I noticed, a lot of other people outside of myself deal with the same thing, but they don't like to speak about it. Mm-hmm. Especially as a Black man, you get looked down upon if, saying you're expressing your feelings or anything like that, though. Or if you show any kind of emotion that's not manly.
Exactly.
So, and then a lot of us just hold it in. And then until it's too late.
No doubt.
And, then you got suicide. You got, people who go out and do things where it's not rational, but it happens. Exactly. Because they didn't have an ear or they didn't use their voice. So that's one.
That's something that I've been able to kind of just talk to people, even if it's just online. People think about hey, you go on Facebook, you make a comment, yada yada yada. But I've gone on there from time to time and say things just like you said. Man, there's always options.
Yeah,
there's an ear. I'm here for you if you need to talk, need to just chop it up, have a drink, whatever. For anybody out there who's listening, that's a friend of mine. Regardless of what you're going through, there's always somebody you can talk to. To your point, Duane.
Right.
It's a serious thing, man, and I'm glad you're on the show and bringing awareness to it. I think Black people, man, too long have been putting Uncle Willie in the back room. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's they solve to mental health, and they don't want to advocate or look into it. And we're talking about Black men, but that even goes with Black women. You know what I'm saying? We just, as a people, haven't addressed that thoroughly and been honest with ourselves on what we need to do with that. So it's awesome that you're here to talk about that and we can bring awareness to that. Yeah, and like Malik said, if there's anybody out there that's having an issue, man, find help. Mm-hmm. Seek help. And do the things that you need to, because it's like anything else. It's a disease or an illness that we have to treat. And if treated right, you can be a functional person,
Correct.
And a lot of people aren't aware of that. So
yeah, looking at going perspective, because this made me sad when I was researching all of this information. So according to the American Psychological Association, first of all, when you deal with depression and anxiety and all that stuff, there actually is a provider bias as well. And you got to look at it as a Black male, who do you feel comfortable talking with? Learning that about 83.6% of your psychologists are white. And that means only 14.6% are Asian, Black. We're all lumped together, Asian, Black, Latinos. And we know that sometimes comes from cultural bias. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And how comfortable do you feel like talking to somebody? And a lot of that stigma comes from, again, misinformation, okay, ignorance of the fact that mental health means something's clearly wrong. Like, we all go through bouts of depression at times and anxiety. Some of us have more of a support system to deal with it than others, and I think that plays a big part. You just got to make sure you're surrounding yourself around the right people. Also, with their different type of stigmas, there's one called a personal stigma, and I think that's the problem, is we have societal norms, right? And so then we internalize the fact that society sees that as a bad thing. Society sees as that's not the norm, but it is the norm. We all have problems. We all go through situations. We have to deal with death. Personal experiences, right? Mm-hmm. And we just don't know how to address and to come to that. So definitely reach out. There's a lot of resources there, and hopefully as a community, we can get more Black people going into the mental health route too. So we have somebody actually to speak with in regards to that. Somebody
we can relate to.
Right, and someone who can relate to us and our own personal experiences.
We have to be a little bit more trusting of our the medical community too. I think there's a lot of doubt around medicine and scared. People don't want to go to the hospital. They're afraid to go to the hospital altogether.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know you wanted to touch on something. I just want to make one quick point, man, is that when you talk about like the comfort level of who you're talking to, a lot of people, Black people in our Black community, we're very close and comfortable talking to our pastors and people like that. And they turn to those people rather than turning to their doctors because of maybe they don't have a Black doctor, or they're afraid to go to the doctor or go to the hospital or things like that. So they end up getting the wrong type of help. Because a pastor can help you, right? They can talk to you. Don't get it twisted, but they're not specialized in like depression and mental health and things like that.
Well, no, well, back. I mean, what she was saying about people who don't want to go to the hospital and things like that. Like, and I was scared of the medication. That's why that was offered to me, because all of the other
Side effects.
You know what I'm saying? Setback. I mean, you could get addicted to the stuff. You know, and that was one thing that I didn't want to get. You know what I'm saying? Addicted to is, I mean, just to. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's a side to both sides of it. I mean, I might get better or feel better with the depression, but also now do I have to live every day off of this drug?
Right.
You know, so I mean, I think talking to somebody is better than, you know what I'm saying, than any kind of medication that you could really give a person, because, you know, like everything has a setback.
Yeah.
Everything has a setback.
I had an anxiety attack too, like back in the day, and I got over it. But I mean, it ain't nothing like it. It's scary, man.
No,
Scary
it
shit.
is. It is.
Yeah. And I think his was a little bit more medical too, stimulating from that. But I had anxiety. When I lost my dad, I never lost anybody close to me. So that was like my first experience. So then I started having, issues. And you're thinking, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack, or what's happening? And you don't know what to do with that. They have to go to the emergency room, kept going to the doctor. And then I did have a good doctor told me, he's like, you have anxiety. So I went and researched, like, what does that mean? I've never been an anxious person.
Yeah.
I'm good with myself. I got high self-esteem. I love my family. My family loves me. So why am I going through this? So I think a lot of times you have to dig within yourself and figure out what is triggering.
Right.
And until you find your trigger, you can't deal with it because you don't know what's wrong. You're like, I thought it was okay, I'm dealing with this death. I'm talking about it, but I wasn't talking about it enough. I wasn't dealing with it. And as soon as I figured out what my trigger was and I dealt with it and started talking and, just reaching out to people who had that kind of similar situation, then you can deal. So I agree with you. I don't think anxiety necessarily you might need medication. There are some people who do.
Yeah.
Like every day, like they can't get up in the morning and do what they need to do.
Right.
But I do think speaking about it and talking with people and having people not judge, because I think as a community, we can be judgmental as people.
Most definitely.
Right.
Yes.
So I think people just need to be more open to their own personal experiences and being able to talk to other people and let them find comfort in that.
Right.
Yeah, I think when you come on that judgmental part, it's a lot of people out there, that are not sympathetic or anything like that, because they don't think it can happen to them, Hey, man, happened to me. And so they're not understanding. So you definitely got to get more understanding when it comes to it, Kind of going back to when we were talking about like the mistrust of medical professionals or whatever. Just think as Black people, we're so scared of being misdiagnosed. And, that's like a lot of brothers like in the prison system, or they get in trouble with the law. Then they get diagnosed as having medical issues. Now, some of them have medical issues, and it's true, But sometimes I think they say they maybe get overdiagnosed, and kind of what DeJuan was saying. Now they're getting put on medication. That medication becomes addictive, and it's not solving the problem. It's actually,
Causing another
problem. So I
It's
think that's
hard.
where that mistrust comes in.
That's true, man. I feel you 100%. But it's also hard to. You can't solve something. All medical conditions aren't like you can't solve. You can't prevent them. Some things you just have to manage.
Right.
And sometimes the medication is the way to manage it, right? And people need to understand that. Sometimes it doesn't make you feel good. Sometimes, you feel funny or weird, especially like with depression. I've heard stories where people takes a long time to get their medication balanced correctly, and they have some imbalance, and they have horrible side effects and things that they hate. And then finally, one day, they get that mix right. The doctor finally gets it right. But that's like anything like that you're trying to fix, right? A car or whatever. Like you need to tweak your carburetor until you get it correctly or whatever. You know, I don't know. I'm not a mechanic, but I figure like each individual is different, and if they just had a certain mix they could give everybody, then they would. But everybody's not the same, so it takes time.
Right. I mean, and touching back about people, I remember. I will just tell the story. Like I remember after my little brother passed away, and I was going through it. My aunt and my brother passed away. I was going through it, and my coworker, you know, I explained to him like I had depression. He said, "Man, that's not real. That's just a mental thing." Blah blah blah. Like just he went through the whole scenario with me, and then he lost both his parents. And he called me. He's like, "I want to apologize because that depression is real." Like he's like, "I feel it like now." And at first he was judgmental of it, but then once he felt it,
he didn't go through it.
Yep. So that's that thing, like
exactly.
you said, people don't understand it to your point, because they've never experienced it. But we as a people don't have to experience something to understand it and be empathetic. Right. That's the problem to me. Like, why are we putting Uncle Willie in the back room?
Yeah.
Right. Instead of putting Uncle Willie in the back room, we need to be taking Uncle Willie out.
and ask him, what's going
talk
on.
to Uncle Willie.
Yeah.
Take him to the places he wants to go. Let him experience life. You know what I'm saying? Make things better for Uncle Willie so that he's not always in a state of depression or a state of like whatever you want to call it, like that makes him sick, his illness that he's having, right? And I think we don't have that empathy for some reason. Like, why don't we have that empathy? Why is it like he shouldn't have had to experience it himself to say, man, you know what? I'm sorry that you're going through that.
Right.
Instead, this brother go right to like blame.
Yeah.
Like, nigga, get over that shit.
Right.
You know, that's what we do to each other. That's the problem.
Exactly.
In the black community.
Exactly.
Well, I don't think that's a black community thing. I think it's a human situation. It's kind of like discrimination, right? Systemic racism that we as black communities scream about all the time. And you got some people who don't look like us, like, oh, it's a fallacy. It's in your mind. Yeah. You're not having to work harder. It's what you think. You ain't working hard enough, you know. So I think as a human issue, you know, that's what happens. A lot of people just automatically make an assumption that it's not real because they don't have that experience.
But
so,
see,
no empathy.
It's like, to me, I feel you 100%. It's a human thing, but it seems like we're always on the receiving end.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, whether it's a black person doing it to a black person, a white person doing it to a black person, we always on the receiving end of that shit. Like, why are we always the ones who like are getting no empathy? Like, people out there who, and I'm switching gears a little bit, but there are people out there, to your point, who don't even believe that racism exists.
Right.
No empathy. You can have empathy for something that you're not experiencing.
Right.
It's okay. Same thing with depression.
Yeah. Most definitely.
So, I mean, I know, Walanda, you had a list of like some things that people can do to help overcome like the stigmas, because I think it's important that we kind of touch on like, hey, there's some stigmas out there. What can we do to help eliminate those?
Well, first, what we just talked about, empathy, show compassion. Just because you don't have the experience or the plight that you don't understand, it doesn't mean it's not happening to somebody. So first, just being compassionate out there and listen. Be attentive to that individual, you know, have a conversation about it. Share your own personal experiences. Not everybody's experienced death. And that's good if you haven't at our age.
Man,
you know,
that's
because
crazy
when you do,
if you haven't.
when you do, I don't know. I've never been the same after that. I think I live through it every day and just understand that, you know, until you have that experience, like I said, I don't wish it upon anybody else. I think you really, really, truly can reach out to that individual. But just because you haven't had that experience doesn't mean that you can't show some type of empathy. The other one, do not be judgmental. Your language matters. What you are saying, like Dewan's individual, his coworker, like you don't ever tell somebody that you shouldn't feel this way or get over it or, you know, be a big girl, put your big girl panties on, but you know what I'm saying? Use a man, what you crying about? We don't do that because you don't understand the trauma that person is experiencing.
Yep.
And again, this is on NAMI, NAMI. It's how to overcome stigma in the African American community. So you can reach out and go to .org if you're interested in hearing some more information. The other one also, start advocating. So what we're doing right now is having the conversation. Nobody's in here judging Dewan or myself as well, or you, Malik, too. And having your experiences, you got to be an advocate. You got to let people know that you can go out there and talk to somebody. I would be very careful on who you are sharing the information with a mental health provider. Make sure it's somebody that you do trust, because unfortunately, human beings, we have biases.
Right.
It's real.
Yep.
Now, if that person understands that they may have a bias and may not be understand every situation that you've been through, basically, if it's cultural or, gender based or whatever the case may be, just make sure that you can trust that person, and just know, like, the mental health community, the practitioners, they're increasing because they recognize that it is a problem. Your experiences are leading that way. So definitely check out the resources.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Good stuff.
So, Dewan, I want to thank you, man, for just being open and honest with us and sharing your experience. And if anybody out there is, going through any type of, mental health issues, depression, anxiety, there's all types of things out there. There's always help, man. You're never alone. This is a world full of people who are willing to help you, whether it's somebody you know or somebody you don't know. One good resource is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. That's SAMHSA.gov. If you need help, you want somebody to talk to, you need resources, go there. Okay, SAMHSA.gov. All right.